Apple is like a ship with a hole in the bottom, leaking water. And my job is to get the ship pointed in the right direction.
Hello, friends. Welcome to another edition of Just a Couple of Guys. Let me introduce my partner, Pat Crimmins, former prosecutor in Kane County and now in private practice. I'm Ray Roggina, co-hosting this podcast now in its second year.
Yes.
Our motto, of course, as you all know, is we talk everything. And today we are pleased to have a conversation with the Associate General Counsel of Digital Safety from Microsoft, Kate Ross. Ms. Ross will join us shortly from the Great Pacific Northwest to discuss a myriad of topics related to being a lawyer in the tech industry, including artificial intelligence, gaming, and the timely topic of digital safety, particularly as it relates to parents and their children. But when we return, and before our interview, Pat and I intend to banter a few minutes about what we like about social media. All of this after a word from one of our fine sponsors. Stay tuned. Hello, friends. This is Ray Roggina. Hey, the Kane County Cougars are back for the summer. The best family entertainment around features sunshine, baseball, and fireworks through Labor Day. With great food, entertainment, giveaways, and running the bases after every game, there's something for everyone at a Cougars game. And Thirsty Thursdays feature $2 beer, pop, and hot dogs. And on Sunday, a $15 ticket gets you $15 right back in concession cash to spend at the ballpark. What a deal for you baseball foodies. Come visit us at beautiful Northwestern Medicine Field this summer for your dose of sunshine, baseball, and fireworks, and make your family memories today.
At McNally Heating and Cooling, we understand that customer satisfaction starts with arriving at your home on time. Your service technician will apply the same attention to detail and quality workmanship to every job, large or small. We offer upfront, honest pricing, and we'll make sure the job gets done right from start to finish. From furnace and air conditioning service, minor repairs, or total equipment replacement, we do it all. Give us a call or find us online and let the luck of the Irish work for you.
We're back, and as promised, Pat and I are going to do a little conversation here about social media, only because that's one of the main topics today in our main podcast with Miss Catherine Kate Ross, and we'll get to that in a little bit. But Pat, I'm sure we're going to come up with some negative things about social media later on. I'm sure we're going to come up with a lot of negative things. So let's take the other approach here for a little bit and talk about the positive things of social media. And we can talk about TikTok and Instagram, but my comfort zone is Facebook because that's the only social media I'm really on. And so, I mean, you have at it with anything else you want to talk about, but I just would lay the foundation by saying, I didn't know anything about this stuff till I ran for mayor of St. Charles. You and a couple of other individuals really said to me, you got to get a Facebook page. And so I did. And I have to tell you, it was one of the best things we did. And I got almost 2,500 friends now because of that. And it's really been kind of enlightening. And there's a lot of interesting things, but I'll get to me in a little bit. What do you like about social media? What do you drive as the main benefits of social media?
Well, as I've spoken about many, many times here on the podcast, I'm kind of a news junkie. So I love information. So I went from a paper boy that had 4 or 5 papers on the kitchen table every day to Twitter and Instagram and Facebook and all these sources of information. Twitter is a little out of favor, obviously, at this point. So we've moved over to Threads. Ray, I don't know if you're on Threads, but Threads is...
I told you, just Facebook, but I'm willing to listen. Threads.
is
What's
the
that all
new,
about?
friendlier version of Twitter.
All right.
You still receive a lot of information, but everybody seems a little nicer. There aren't mean comments and explosive comments. So I'm enjoying my experience on Threads. I'm a big fan of Instagram. I love photos and the videos. I think I'm a visual learner ultimately, and I think that's part of it. And I really enjoy that.
Can you take, Pat? Can you take stuff from Instagram? Because you know, I'm a friend of yours on Facebook, and can you take stuff from
Wait a second, we're
Instagram and
friends?
put it on Facebook?
You can share. Obviously, Instagram and Facebook are owned by the same company,
Wow.
Meta.
All right.
Yes, so they're in sync, and now you have Threads, so all three of them are in sync, right?
All right.
Facebook is kind of dying a little bit,
Oh, well, I wouldn't be
especially
shocked.
especially with the demographic, the younger demographic. So people like us, older people, and I include myself, are more on Facebook than the younger people. The younger people are on Instagram, and of course, Snapchat is what they love to do. So, like I said, I love it for the information. I think I told this story before. I'm not sure, but I followed a person that said we got him, and I was interested in what that meant, and it was vague. And then I looked into who the guy was, and apparently he was working for Donald Rumsfeld in the Bush administration. So I was of the opinion that we got bin Laden, and hours later, it was correct. But so I was there at the beginning. So obviously George Bush was given some briefing by the Obama administration, and the word got around. So so I love that kind of stuff, and I love being informed. I love going into details. All sorts of newspapers, the L.A. Times, San
Right.
Francisco Chronicle, all that stuff. You get different perspectives, and in this day and age, we all need multiple sources of information.
Well, I can tell our audience that when I follow you, sometimes it's interesting to try to interpret certain things. You're trying to send messages, and for example, correct me if I'm wrong, but on your Facebook page, if former President Trump screws up somehow and or says something outlandish, or he's indicted again, or whatever the case may be, you seem to have a picture of Richard Nixon appear on your Facebook page. There's symbolism there. Am I correct?
There's a little symbolism there. I use Nixon for all of Trump's initial term, because the idea is that Nixon, although he did some bad things and was a bad person, ultimately, it doesn't compare, in my opinion, to what's happening with President Trump. So I kind of used him instead of bad mouthing the president. I felt it was better to kind of go around and use the Nixon image.
And if there's something that's outright terrible that happens in the country, you seem to all of a sudden put up a black mourning screen. It's just black.
That could be the country. It could be me. It could be anything. I use a lot of times. I use Denzel Washington from Glory. You remember when he's being whipped because he left and he went and got some shoes? He's being whipped, but then you see this one tear come down. That's a famous profile picture I use a lot. Today we have my graduation picture.
I saw that. No,
from law school.
You got to help me with this. I've seen that picture numerous times. You posted it numerous times. There's got to be some symbolism on your graduation picture.
Well, it relates to
because I don't know that you keep on just posting it just for fun. There's something there. Go ahead.
It relates to the fact that we're talking to Kate Ross today. It's all about the school, the background, all that kind of stuff.
All right. Well, that's good. Let me just say to you that I get on there for a lot of various different reasons. Again, while I was mayor, I used my Facebook page all the time to promote St. Charles. There's no question. And with the places you can go to promote the city, the city of St. Charles page, the Alliance page, and so on, you can throw a lot of nice stuff out there. I like the fact that I can now, as a member of the Just a Couple of Guys team, we can not only promote our podcast, we also throw a bone to our sponsors. You and I both will incessantly put our sponsors in the forefront, and that's only correct. They're supporting us. We should support them, and I like the fact that Facebook allows us to do just that.
Let's not forget the publisher, Fox Valley Magazine.
Oh, well, we're all Paul. Though Paul has he's on Facebook, and he can comment if he wants on turn his microphone on. But he tends to be a little bit clandestine. He just picks his spots carefully. He's not a big player, from what I can see, but he does pick his spots and then drops a bomb or two there just for debate and discussion.
That's the key to not annoying anybody. You see, just kind of in and out. See, people like myself, we're constantly annoying people.
Oh, I'm sure. I agree. My guess is some people say, that guy, he's annoying. He just posts everything. Well, but there's certain passions I have. And now I'm into I'm a foodie, and I come across all these Italian recipes and so on. I give them to my wife. I say, well, she's a great cook. She's going to make this stuff, but heck, other people should see this stuff, cook it up as well if they want to. If they don't,
I'm spending each and every night at home cooking Italian dishes.
Well, I'm glad to hear that.
Experimentation, Noodles.
Now, here's another thing. Here's a couple other things I like about Facebook. This is with regard to friendships. I get a chance every day, and I do this, to wish my Facebook friends happy birthday. They'll tell me I got 6 or 7 or 9 Facebook friends' birthday today. Doesn't take me but 2 minutes. Happy birthday, Pat. Happy birthday, Paul. No problem. I like that.
Pal.
Or pal. I use the word pal a lot for a guy. I used to use young lady, but I've stopped that, and I actually got a complaint the other day. Somebody sent me a note and said, "You're not calling me young lady anymore. What's that all about?" So, okay. The other one that, on a sadder note, but it gives me an opportunity to do so, is in memoriam with friends of mine who lost parents, siblings, or whoever, a spouse. It gives me a chance. I'm not necessarily going to be going to the wake. It might be in another state, but I'm in a position to say to them how sorry I am and sharing their grieving. So, yeah, that to me is a big advantage that Facebook provides. And of course, the last thing I'd just bring up is, me, I love sports memorabilia, and there's so much on Facebook and so many pages that are devoted to old sports, old stadiums, old this, old that. And I love to post those scenes. And usually I'll get somebody or old players. The other day I put Nellie Fox up there on a Philadelphia A's uniform.
Oh. And
man, oh God, he doesn't have a chaw in his mouth, tobacco chaw. I love that guy. Blah. Gary Johnson came in. He was on the Nellie Fox Society and helped him get in the Hall of Fame. So you get all that stuff here going. So
I'm a top contributor on the Vintage NFL page.
Oh, not only that, but you have at least a couple times a year, you post a picture of yourself with Jack Tatum. They call me assassin.
That's right. That's what I'm feeling a little rain. Yeah.
My guess is you're very proud of that picture, and so you like to post that. Last but not least, this has come on recently, and I know I've sent this to you a couple of times. You've had no comment. I've also sent it to Paul, and he kind of likes it. But I like the Italian American slang word of the day. That one, this guy that gets on there, and it kind of brings back old memories of my grandparents popping off in Italian around the house. And there's a few times, mangia, for eat. And there's some interesting slang words, and a couple I won't allude to here on the screen here. Now, we've got Kate coming up here in a few moments here, and we're going to get a lot more serious about social media, and perhaps a lot of you out here will pick up a few new things that you didn't know about the fact that social media can and is dangerous in some respects. And right. So I think we brought to you quite an authority on this subject. Pat here also has, in his time in the prosecution of criminals in Kane County, he's come across cases like this. So I want you to make sure you listen carefully to what has to be said today, because I think you'll find you'll get a lot out of this particular podcast. We're looking forward to it. And so after this brief word, We'll be back with Kate Ross of Microsoft. Stay tuned. Hello, friends. This is Ray Rogina. I'd like to say a few words about my friends at the Karas Group of Restaurants, one of our sponsors. I've been a frequent guest at all of their fine restaurants for years, one of which is Rookie's, which has locations throughout the Fox Valley and beyond. My favorite dish at Rookie's is the gyros plate with the saganaki appetizer. Oopa! My wife, she loves the Hall of Fame chicken sandwich. But I can honestly say that I've never had a bad meal there, regardless of whatever I've had to eat. The wings are out of this world, the salads are delicious, great burgers, tacos, all American specialties, and don't forget their pizza. And of course, you can wash this all down with one of their famous Mai Tais. Try them out. St. Charles, Geneva, Elgin, Hoffman Estates, Huntley, and Roselle. RookiesPub.com. I'll see you there.
Yes.
Friends, we're back, and very pleased that you can see to have one of our esteemed lawyers from Microsoft, the Associate Counsel for Digital Safety. And I might add now, as a source of pride, a former student of mine, Kate Ross, in the Emerald City of Seattle. And Kate, it's a pleasure to have you on today.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I feel honored, and I'm a longtime listener of the pod.
Well, let me say this before we even get going on anything, and I say this to both Pat and you. And I said this once before when we had a former student on. I can't tell you how, and I'm saying this all really very seriously. I can't tell you how proud I am to be able to do something like this with two former students who, have done very well for themselves. And for me, as an educator, that's the ultimate prize. So it's nice to have both of you and have a nice conversation today about a very serious topic, I might add. So anyway, enough said. Let me ask you this question. After you were of course at high school at St. Charles, and then you were also involved with Pat and I. Pat had come along that first year that you had graduated as the legal counsel for our mock trial team, and so you were involved in the mock trials. And after that, you decided, you got a bachelor's degree from Wisconsin, and it pains me to say it from a football standpoint, but from an academic standpoint, you have this wonderful degree in law from Big Blue itself, University of Michigan.
That's right.
That's a great achievement. I looked at your credentials, and I will ask this question. Talk to the audience a bit about your time. You spent some time studying or whatever at Dartmouth at the Tuck School of Business. Talk about that for a minute, will you please?
Oh, sure. Wow, that takes me back. So a couple jobs ago, I'm currently at Microsoft, but I had the pleasure of working for 10 years at a little toy company called Hasbro. And Hasbro has a number, their hands are in a number of different pots. One of them is Dungeons and Dragons and Magic the Gathering, two games that are very well known. If you don't know them, then somebody in your life probably does. They're extremely popular, especially with younger people. And I was on the leadership team. I was a general counsel of Wizards, and I had a position at Hasbro as well. And so they sent me off to Dartmouth to teach me how to be an executive at Hasbro. A lot of companies have these executive management programs, and ours was through Tuck. So I spent some time at Tuck during the summer when the students weren't there, with people from Hasbro all over the world and all of the Dartmouth business professors, learning what it takes to be a leader. And it was an amazing experience. It was something that has helped me in the entire rest of my career. I think it was about 15 years ago. But what a great opportunity.
And prior to Hasbro, and of course, you had this conversation when my wife and I were in Seattle. Before that, you spent time at Amazon. Is that correct?
I did. I started my career in Chicago at a law firm, as many people do, and I had an opportunity right at the turn of the century to come out to Seattle, move myself. and join a startup, a little tiny company called Amazon. And at the time, it was a bookstore. And I remember I was in my 20s and I told my parents, yeah, I'm leaving Chicago and I'm going to move to Seattle and go take a giant pay cut, go to this startup called Amazon. And they thought I was insane. They thought I was absolutely out of my mind, off my rocker. But I joined, and it was one of the greatest experiences of my career. I made many, many great friends. It was part of a very small department of lawyers. So as you can imagine, with that company, we did everything. You name it, we did it, whether it's corporate law, trademark law, litigation. I had the opportunity to live in Japan for a little while and help support the launch of the Amazon.co.jp website. It was a really tremendous experience. And having that e-commerce background has really helped me in my career, being basically a consumer protection lawyer in many respects.
My wife reminded me, because when we had this conversation, you better make sure you spotlight the fact that she was one of the first women attorneys at Amazon.
Well, yes, I was. And also, when I was hired by the General Counsel of Amazon, who was a woman at the time, Michelle Wilson, who was one of my mentors and one of my favorite people. So Amazon has long championed women, although at the time there weren't that many in the department. And so I was very lucky to be a part of that. And my very next job was a General Counsel job. So obviously it went, hockey stick for me just from that experience.
Ray talked about the fact that he is a former teacher of yours and he's excited for you to be here. I consider myself a former teacher of yours as well, although it was just the 1 year, and very excited to have you. I mean, the idea that you've become podcast worthy is just amazing. And
I can't believe I met the bar, you guys. I mean,
right.
you both have a lot of former students, a lot of students who participated in mock trial, a lot of students who became lawyers. So, I mean, I feel really lucky to have been taught by both of you, lucky to have been part of St. Charles and the system, and people who really invested a lot of volunteer time to have a team of students do a mock trial. Volunteering is so important. And Pat, you've donated what, 33 years of your time to this, at least?
Yeah. Well, I've donated the company that I worked for as well, their time. So I've been lucky that people have supported me in that. But I enjoy it. And you're right. There are a lot of mock trial kids that will be here someday on a podcast, I think, because they are also shining in their fields. And your work is important, and we all benefit from it because we're talking about safety and technology and things like that, which affects all of our lives. I wanted to talk a little bit about the fact that you're kind of in-house counsel. And so what does that mean in terms of just a lawyer job, as opposed to the average person thinking lawyer does this or lawyer does that? What do you do on a regular basis?
Yeah, so in-house is quite a bit different from being in a courtroom. I haven't been in a courtroom in years, and most of my my colleagues in-house in these companies never see a courtroom. What we do is counsel people who work for our client, and our client is a faceless thing. It's a company. And so we have to do what's in the best interest of the company in a holistic fashion, including making sure that they are compliant with laws and counseling people about how to do that, identifying risks and providing guidance on how to mitigate those risks. What we think the right and ethical things should be to do for new technologies, for new and novel business processes. That's something that in-house counsel do. And I've been lucky enough in my career to have a lot of hats, really not to have specialized too much until fairly recently in my career, when I became sort of a full-time trust and safety lawyer. and focused solely on protecting people who are doing things online, and kids especially. But that's a whole specialty that's just beginning. The beginning, where like privacy was about 15 years ago.
Right. And it's about time, some would say, that trust and safety is a priority, right?
That's right.
And so that's basically your assignment at Microsoft, is trust and safety?
Yes, I run a team of lawyers and specialists who think about digital safety holistically across all of our domains. And, of course, our job is to think about how digital safety fits within the Microsoft ecosystem, but we really think about how digital safety fits within the world, because Microsoft products are used by just about everybody to
Right.
do just about everything. And so if you think about it, it's not really about
And
customers.
they're fabulous, by the way. Just so
well, I
that's-
assume you probably have used Word or Outlook in your life, or maybe PowerPoint. I notice we're on Zoom, so we're not using Microsoft Teams. That's okay.
I keep getting notification of Teams.
I'm sure you do.
I disregard. Amazon, you indicated that you started there. I just wanted to ask, did you get any stock options?
I did. I certainly did. I mentioned I took a pay cut to come to that little company.
Right.
At the time I joined, it was all fit in one little building in Seattle. I did have stock options, and very sadly, I sold them all so I could pay off my student loans and my husband's student loans. But you know what? That's okay, because having the credential turns out to have been just fine.
Now, you were based in Chicago at one point, and obviously now you're out in Washington. But do you miss Chicago? Do you miss working in Chicago?
I really do. There's nothing quite like the Windy City. And nothing quite like the communities that are built in Chicago. People really know the meaning of community there. That was something that struck me when I moved to Seattle. There's a thing known as the Seattle Freeze. And if you have never heard of the Seattle Freeze is an unwelcoming feeling that people who are new to the town have. And so it's a real thing. People who move to Seattle report that they have trouble making friends, finding community. One of the reasons is I think it's the weather, to be honest with you. The weather, though it rains a lot, is relatively mild year round. So people are outside. They're doing things. They're hiking. They're kayaking. They're running. They don't do things indoors if they can help it. And Chicago, because it's not as great 9 months out of the year, I personally think people are just inside more, and they are communing with each other, and probably having an adult beverage or two.
Pat, something you like. Pat, something you like. They also drink
that was my experience.
A lot of coffee in Seattle. A lot of coffee.
There's coffee, but coffee is in to-go cups. You really can't take, a frosty mug of beer, some Goose Island, and go on a hike.
Well, let's get back to Microsoft and being a tech lawyer. I take it, given trust and safety, that you're involved with the government, or at least consulted with or by as to what the programs may do, what the exposures and risks may be. Tell us a little bit about government regulation, how you deal with it, and why it's so important as it relates to trust and safety.
Sure. Well, up until just a few years ago, the realm of trust and safety, digital safety, online safety was not regulated. It was largely contained, and particularly in the United States, we have what's that little amendment called the First Amendment, where we
everybody.
Yes, number one, and so the government does not regulate speech, and doesn't regulate speech online in the United States. Not true in the rest of the world. But up until just a few years ago, there were not really any regulations around online spaces. That has changed. One of the things that changed it was the Facebook files. All in, I think it was 2022, a woman named Frances Haugen, who had worked at Facebook, now Meta, revealed, she was a whistleblower, and she revealed a bunch of internal documents from Facebook identifying that there were some significant harms to people, and especially to children, and especially teenage girls, because of their experiences on social media.
Right.
Now, that particular set of information has all kinds of nuance and caveats, but the general sense was, hey, we have never regulated tech in this way. We've never regulated online spaces. The world got on board and said, this is something that we should do. Another thing that happened a few years before Frances Haugen was a mass shooting in Christchurch, New Zealand, where a person from Australia put a GoPro on, walked into a mosque and killed 50 people. And he had a video, and it was a live stream. This was outrageous, and it outraged the world. And the Prime Minister of New Zealand decided that there needed to be regulation and that the tech companies needed to work with government. And so she and the president of Microsoft, the president of France, and a few other people got together and created something called the Christchurch Call, which was kind of one of the foundational public-private partnerships around what tech can do to get rid of this content and to prevent it from spreading. Because the worry that people had was that if they saw it, it might cause copycats. And so the Christchurch Call was a really foundational element for government regulation as well. Now we are seeing a whole range of laws being introduced here in the US, passing in other countries such as Australia. The UK has a major online safety bill that they have been working on for 2 years. And the EU passed a law called the Digital Services Act, which is a comprehensive law across all kinds of services to provide systems and systematic approaches to keeping people safe online. So I, in my role, focus on all that ecosystem of laws and regulations and what that means for Microsoft and our products.
Do they at Microsoft take new products or product ideas to you first and say, this is what we're thinking about? Where are we in trust and safety as it relates to that? Or what should we be looking at?
Yes. Yeah. So one of the things that we have developed at Microsoft, and this is a hot topic in the trust and safety field, is safety by design. So in the concepting phase, you have to look at privacy, you have to look at cybersecurity, you have to look at, is the product accessible? And now you have to look at, what are the features that you're building that may have some safety risks, and how do we design it to make it more safe? So that is definitely something that has now taken hold, and that we've built at Microsoft, which is very exciting.
And the idea of safety, when you think about TikTok, sometimes people think of safety as influence, negative influence. This particular, this particular social media is affecting my child by its influence, not necessarily by the technology of it. And so we have a ban, I think. I don't know if it's still enacted at this point, whether it's being litigated in Montana, I believe, with TikTok. Is that
right.
something that you deal with as well?
It's something that we keep an eye on, in part because there are a number of states that are trying to follow in Montana's footsteps, not just with TikTok, but with social media in general, and at least ban the usage of social media for people under a certain age. So they want to age gate specific types of products. One of the ways that shows up for us at Microsoft, even though at least within our family we don't have a TikTok or an Instagram product, is that you have to figure out how old somebody is in order to decide whether they can use a product like that. And that's called age verification. Do you know how age verification works? It's like government IDs and giving a tech company your ID. So that's something that the whole world is grappling with. How do we keep kids safe and know who kids are while also not collecting so much information from people? There's a trade-off with a lot of these laws. And in the TikTok experience in particular, I know that TikTok is funding litigation to have that law taken down as a violation of their own First Amendment rights, as well as the First Amendment rights of creators on that platform.
And the
And if I may,
Constitution, and the
if I may jump in
Constitution
just for a
doesn't.
moment.
I'm sorry, Ray. And the Constitution doesn't age gate the First Amendment, right?
Children have First Amendment rights.
That's right. That's all I'm
Absolutely.
saying.
And
Right.
boy, oh boy, do we talk about that a lot, because kids need access to information. Safety is a balance between harm, making sure you have harms reduction and enabling freedom of expression. And somewhere in there is the balance. So it's very hard, very difficult, and it has very significant trade-offs, and that's exactly what you're seeing with the TikTok.
Sorry, Ray, go ahead.
I'm just going to jump in on this point. I know we're going to talk a bit more about safety later, a little later on, but on this issue, I read an editorial in one of the Chicago papers, and I've got it here in front of me. It is asking Congress to pass the Protecting Kids Act. And I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but one of the things that jumps at me is to your point about age. It says, first of all, the bill would, it has not been passed, obviously, the bill would prohibit users who are under age 13 from accessing social media platforms. So then the question becomes, one is that at the right age? It was on Holly in Missouri, he put an amendment on there saying that he thinks that 13 may be too early. Most people can agree that under 13 is too young. He likes 16. Then we get to the second point. It says legislation would require parental or guardian consent for social media users under age 18. So there's three different ages: 13, 16, and 18. Your comments, if I may.
This is what makes it so tricky. You know, we've been grappling with this for years because the age 13 is tied to a different law that is enacted called the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act, which requires that you get parental consent to collect information, personal information, from kids under the age of 13. And that law has been around for quite a while. The FTC regulates through COPPA, through this law. And so 13 has always been an age that you would see in like terms and conditions. You can't use this website if you're under the age of 13. What folks are learning is that is not much of kids under 13 don't read the terms and conditions on a website. And so
I don't think anybody does.
I read them. Of course, it's out of professional curiosity more than anything else.
48-page document.
I agree with you. They tend to be very unwieldy, and no, people just click through. So, how do you really actually enact these things? Well, in Europe, every country in the EU has a different age that they say is the age of digital majority when you can actually use things. So some are 15, some are 16. US has 13. It then requires basically coding into a website or into a system, gathering data, gathering information, and then having that yes, no, and being able to do it by geography. So you can imagine if we don't have US laws that are just, federal, if we have different state laws, we would even be having to do that geofencing by state. And so that does become quite unwieldy. It's like, it starts to look a lot like how you implement sales taxes with thousands and thousands of different potential options.
Right?
Kate, I'm reading another headline in another Chicago paper this week, and it's very timely. I knew we were getting a topic of artificial intelligence, so I decided to pick this point and get your reaction to. Consumers need protection from Chat GPT and other artificial intelligence models. Just a small reading of a first paragraph. The Federal Trade Commission, which you've alluded to, has launched an investigation of ChatGPT for potential violations of consumer protection laws. This FTC sent the company a 20-page demand for information. Move comes as European, you alluded to this earlier, regulators have begun to take action, and Congress is working on legislation to regulate the artificial intelligence industry. Simply put, AI, what is it and what can it become if we're not foreseeing this?
Well, let me just start by saying AI and artificial intelligence has been around for a very, very long time. We've used it every day. If you use a search engine and you look up, I have a headache, how do I help with that? There's a reason why you're not getting 4,000-year-old book references to how they used to deal with headaches in the Middle Ages or in ancient times. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. There's a reason why if you are in Seattle and you look up the Kraken, you will get hockey information as opposed to a giant monster. And that is artificial intelligence. So we've all been using artificial intelligence for a very long time. What has changed is the evolution of what's called large language models, which basically are able to read natural language and make inferences about that. And that enables a whole bunch of new inventions, new ways to chat, where the chatbots will understand your natural language and be able to respond. But the way that they do it, the machines don't actually understand what you're saying. It is a mathematical formula that determines the next likeliest word that will occur in a sentence. And that's based on reading billions and billions and billions of different inputs. So the Consumer Protection Commission, Federal Trade Commission, and consumer protection authorities all over the world have said, and they've said this in the past, but they've said it most recently as ChatGPT has grown in popularity, and as Microsoft has launched products like Microsoft's Bing Chat. The FTC has said, hey, consumer protection laws still apply. They apply to everything. Like, they apply to new technologies just like they apply to old technologies. And that is what you're seeing, because our Congress has yet to really identify comprehensive AI legislation, unlike the EU, which has what's called the AI Act on the table and looks like they are moving towards passing sort of the first big piece of legislation in the world.
Why should AI be feared?
Well, there are a lot of people who are very worried about it. There are a lot of of people out there concerned about the fact that there are mistakes that AI makes. AI can be used for malign purposes. If you want to attack somebody using a variety of services, you can attack them. You can also use AI to do the same thing. So it opens up novel ways to cause new harms, and that is the concern. However, what's really amazing about AI is just as you can open up new vectors of harm, you can open up new ways to combat those harms. That is something that is really amazing. Classifiers, which are basically AI technology that are able to identify specific harms as they're occurring, that kind of technology will explode and is exploding because of the new AI.
I was going to ask this question here. Pat and I were talking about this offline. This is really his question, but I think you already answered it. We can use AI to protect against AI, then, is what it comes down to.
Absolutely. In fact, some of the most cutting edge technologies that are being built right now and that Microsoft has launched are new technologies for cybersecurity. So
All
they're
right.
detecting there are a lot of cybersecurity attacks. How do we use AI to detect them faster and not have the manual processes and all of the people who are doing threat intelligence? How do we augment what they're doing to look around corners faster? So there is so much potential to have new tools to combat harm.
No,
I would think, I'm
go
sorry,
ahead,
Ray.
man. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I would think that this would be helpful as it relates to identifying children at risk as well in terms of communication tools. A 13-year-old doesn't talk the same as a 62-year-old most times. So you would be able to identify that this is a child and this is a child at risk, perhaps, right?
In theory, yes. In theory, that is something that you probably could do with AI much faster. Now, we talked about how children have rights. Children have privacy rights too.
Yes,
And
yes.
so they have rights to their communications, they have rights to their biometric information. And that's a topic that will also need to be grappled with, our desire to use these tools for safety purposes, measured against prohibitions that exist against collecting biometric information or other kinds of data identifying you as a child.
For advertising purposes and others, right?
Oh gosh, for advertising purposes or others. Yep, that's right.
The teacher in me asked one more question before we go to break, and that is, you read about this a lot, and I'm getting very nervous about it, even as a retired teacher. And that is the idea that AI can churn out the papers and all the plagiarism all over the place. Is the face of teaching because of AI going to change, in your opinion? And I say that more toward evaluating the student on not written as much as perhaps verbal and debate and discussion in class, just like you and Pat did in law school with the Socratic method, where it was a lot of it was the professor finding out what you did know and what you did not.
That's right. So yes, I think that AI will have a profound impact on education, but I would argue that it will have a profound positive impact. It will facilitate greater inclusion. It will be an aid for people with special needs and educational challenges. It will augment what you do in the classroom. I think that what we're seeing right now, there are certainly going to be, people who try to use it to write their term paper, and there are new technologies being developed all the time that can suss that out too. So I have a feeling that before long we'll see commercialized services that you could run all the term papers through just to see if they were clearly created by AI.
We have that, really, don't we already?
We do.
Yeah.
We have there are a couple of services that do that. I think that they're just going to become much more prolific and common.
Yeah.
What we are seeing though is AI for education is absolutely a hot area, because think about what you can do in helping kids, read, in helping people organize their thoughts and learning how to structure their arguments. These are things that AI can aid. And this is where a lot of the AI for education sort of energy is being spent.
We're going to take a small break, and we'll return more with Kate Ross dealing with gaming and digital safety. Stay tuned. Hello, friends. This is Ray Rogina. You face technology challenges every day that threaten to steal business, compromise data, and bring your business down. Without a good partner to help protect from phishing, ransomware, viruses, data breaches, employee turnover, and cybersecurity threats, your business is at risk of losing everything. TechWorks has been the trusted IT partner to Fox Valley businesses for over 20 years, keeping systems secure and providing extraordinary customer service, helping your business grow. Call TechWorks today at 630-482-2227 or visit www.techworks.com. That's TechWorks with a Q. TEQ works. And see how TechWorks IT service can transform and secure your business.
So we're back with our guest, Kate Ross. Kate, it's been a pleasure to hear from you regarding these issues. We wanted to explore a little bit about some other issues, digital safety and gaming. I have a son who plays the Grand Theft Auto and the Call of Duty. He's 23 years old now, but he's still down there doing it. And there's communication devices. You're playing with other people. Sometimes they're strangers. Sometimes they're friends. You know, how do you protect these children who are communicating with who knows who these people are, talking about who knows what, without being monitored or whatever? How do you deal with that kind of thing?
Yes, this is so one of the things I would say is that education goes a long way. And as users of games, of gaming platforms and gaming services, and I used to be the lead counsel for the Xbox network. And if you have a console, chances are I had a very tiny bit to do with that at some point, maybe writing the contract that you had to click on. I don't know.
So you're to blame for the hours
Yeah,
the son is
possibly, depending on the year. Yeah. I will tell you that trust and safety has been at the forefront for gaming for many, many years. And so the rest of the world is now only sort of catching up to what gaming has been able to accomplish. But the challenge is always making sure that people understand when they're gaming, what they can do to help themselves and to take advantage of the safety options on a gaming platform. So almost all gaming platforms have what's called report a concern. You can report bad behavior right away, and that is something that is kind of the key tool in an arsenal. But also for children, so this wouldn't probably apply to your son, but for children, most gaming platforms, and Xbox is certainly included in this, have parental controls. And it does take a couple extra steps, and it does require a parent to work with a child to set it up. But if you set up child accounts as a parent, you can control a whole number of interactions that your child might have online, including blocking any strangers from contacting your child. And that is something that I know I set up for my child, and who is now 16 and would very much like me to take them off. He would like me to unblock.
When you say block any stranger, basically you're just including friends and blocking everybody else, right?
Correct. And parents have the option of accepting or rejecting.
Now, can we go back to this report a problem thing?
Yeah.
What happens when I report a problem? Well, what's the mechanism?
Sure. So at least within our trust and safety organization, and certainly this is typically how content moderation works, the evidence is gathered. If it's a screenshot of what's happened, or sometimes you're allowed to write down what happened to you. Oftentimes there's a drop-down box that indicates what the nature of the problem was. I've been cyberbullied. There was hate speech, a variety of other issues. Right. Oftentimes it may just be a matter of somebody, trying to really bully you in a game, or get you to do something in game to support their game, but it hurts your game. There's a whole variety of things that happen in gaming. So what happens is that information goes to content moderators, and most all trust and safety organizations have human beings, who look at the evidence and make a call, and then they do what's called enforcement. So sometimes on gaming platforms, people can be banned. Sometimes they can lose their right to just be allowed to communicate with other people, but they can still play games.
Right.
A variety of enforcement tools are available, and there are real moderators who look at that and take action.
This presupposes, though, that the kid reports the problem, or reports it accurately, or whatever because otherwise there is no monitoring. Right?
That's right. which is where the education piece comes in. It's really important for, as part of sort of an overall digital civility and digital education, to learn about how you can report problems, because just about all social media, just about gaming platforms have anything that has shared interactions enables you to report a problem. And so those tools are very important. They also help companies identify specific risks that happen on platforms, because not every platform has the same risk profile. And then they can put resources towards those specific issues. So even with it, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was going to go, even regarding Apple and listening to music, it always tells me that I'm listening to it too loudly. Right? And so it punishes me and presets the volume at a volume I cannot change. With gaming, and we talk a little bit about social media and teenage mental health, this gaming, these kids can play for hours and hours and hours. Is there a mechanism where, after 5 hours of killing whatever, aliens, playing a Call of Duty or whatever the case might be, that you can't play anymore for a while? Are there self-imposed type of breaks and time limits, things like that?
Yes, at least I'm not familiar with every game out there, every service,
Sure.
but at least on Xbox, there are screen time limits that you can set, whether you're an adult or a parent doing it for a child. And at least even within the Xbox network, on the child accounts, a parent can set a time limit and then extend it by small amounts. Because as you probably have experienced, when you tell them to get off, they say 5 more minutes.
Right.
You actually give them the 5 more minutes.
So what I'm hearing basically is parents need to be more involved. They certainly need to read the terms and conditions, and they certainly have to be familiar with the idea that they can control things, but they actually have to be proactive and actually do the work.
Well, it's a balance, right? I mean, there's a fine line between expecting a tech company to determine what your child can or can't do, or is ready for emotionally, or is mature enough to handle, versus the other side of that, which is a tech company is making decisions about what you do and your children do. And so we try to give people as much control as possible, parents having as much say over what their kids do as possible, by empowering them. And we really focus on how many tools we can give them in their arsenal, because it's tough to be a parent right now. It's tough in a digital age.
The lawyer in me thinks that maybe Microsoft and other companies are trying to kind of put the blame on the parents in kind of a comparative negligence type way. Hey, we did everything we could do. We explained to you all of the pitfalls, pratfalls, and dangers. You didn't do anything. So your 13-year-old is exposed.
It's a partnership, right? Like anything. I mean, it requires all hands on deck to keep people safe. We can't do it by ourselves. So you don't want a society where tech companies are making all the decisions. But the tech companies have a responsibility, and Microsoft has a responsibility to provide the tools. We want input from parents about what will help them. We also work directly with governments to address what the needs are from a legislative perspective. And we speak with NGOs, we speak with researchers, we talk to everybody to try to figure out how to best address that balance. But no, it's not the fault of the parents. It's not. It's an all hands on deck type of issue.
Right. Well, it's very exciting. In terms of the government regulation that you talked about, it seems from what you're saying is that the EU is a little more aggressive than our own Congress as it relates to some of this legislation. And some of the punishments and fines, we've always read about the EU and how they've dealt with Facebook and other social media companies. You would agree with that, or?
Well, I think the EU has been on the forefront of tech regulation for a very long time. And if you've ever been on a website where you have that accept all cookies button, you can thank the EU because they passed comprehensive privacy regulation several years ago, something that our federal government in the US has not been able to do. And so really the EU has invested heavily in having tech savvy people in government. They have a whole bunch of people that they've hired basically who are really, really knowledgeable about technology to advise them on the kinds of regulations that will really work.
So someday we'll read that Kate Ross has retired from Microsoft with her stock options, and she's gone to work for the government.
You know, it's funny you say that. With the passage of a recent law, we had heard that the European Commission was hiring a bunch of people, and a job posting went around to trust and safety people. And the very first thing it said was, must be a citizen of an EU country. So I am a proud citizen of the United States. And
right. I've been to Chicago.
And I actually am a proud citizen of Chicago forever, no matter where I am. Right. And St. Charles, no matter where I am. So
we appreciate that.
Yeah, I don't think I'd be eligible, sadly.
Ray, anything on this issue?
No, I was going to ask if we get a few minutes in on just the whole issue of parenting and bullying. And I know when I was in Seattle talking to Kate, she says that I've got stories galore, and I think she needs to espouse a little bit on real pitfalls of the social media as it relates to middle school kids and high school kids particularly.
Yes, I mean, this is something that why we're seeing this massive amount of regulation and legislation, the Protecting Kids Act, I think you mentioned from the Chicago newspaper. There are a lot of proposals out there, and the states are taking action because they are concerned. You hear all the time from physicians, from people who are in healthcare saying, gosh, you know, our emergency rooms are overflowing with kids who are having serious mental health challenges. And so the research is really only now just starting to be done on identifying sort of the correlation between social media use and mental health. And those studies are very complicated because people are individuals, and people's mental health often has things to do with their environment, and that is very individualized. So these are very difficult things to study, but they are being studied now and being studied heavily. And you know, the initial indication is that there are things that people can do, that technology companies can do, the parents can do, to assist in their kids' mental health. And a lot of it doesn't have to do with social media even. It has to do with just taking a break from screens. So setting those boundaries, having really, really strong conversations with your kids and getting them out of the room, getting the phone out of the room before bedtime, which to protect the sleep of children turns out to be one of the most important things that you can do. And so that's something that, you know, that is early research. That is something that we're discovering. But also there are some subset of kids, it's not even close to a majority, it's a very small minority, but it is a significant number of kids who are experiencing mental distress from being on social media and being, you know, whether they're bullied, whether they are comparing themselves to other people. That tends to be something that particularly hits young teenage girls. You see it in different types of social media. So it very imagery-based social media, like I'm not going to name names, but if there's a lot of pictures, that might be an indicator that, and they're spending a lot of time on that, flipping through pictures. The other thing that social media does, which is kind of a hot topic right now in trust and safety, is the continuous scroll. So if you've ever used a social media product and it just scrolls on forever and ever and ever, you sort of forget that you're even there. And so that's something that researchers are taking a look at, if there were limits to how, if there was an end to the page, how does
Elon Musk
that
did that.
impact it?
Elon
That's
Musk
right.
tried that with Twitter, and it didn't go over so well, and
People
thus we
people
have
like to
Threads.
scroll. People like
Right.
to doom scroll. People like to scroll. Kids like to scroll, and pretty soon you can spend hours just scrolling.
And I'd like to get my last point in here, and it relates to you. And I know your resume says you've been an advisor, you've been to school boards in Seattle.
Yeah.
So what do you tell leaders in schools about this use of phones, all kinds of social media, and the regulations they need to be considering putting down as far as school board rules and regulations are concerned to have a safer school environment?
Well, the biggest and the hardest tends to be the phones in the classroom, I'm afraid to say. And this is one it's very hard for teachers to have to police. It's my personal opinion, very unfair to expect teachers to have to teach when the attention of the kids is on the phone. This is something that I know, our school system battles with, many school systems battle with. That is an area, I think, that if there was uniformity or if there was consistency across the board, parents probably could get behind it. Teachers would definitely get behind it. I think school boards would get behind it. Kids probably won't like it, but there are trade-offs. Like everything in trust and safety, there are trade-offs, because why do kids have, one of the reasons why kids have phones is safety for themselves and physical safety, and making sure that they can connect with their parents if there is a problem. And so taking away that option from them is also a challenge.
It's a great point.
I used to go days without talking to my parents, and in college, I think I saw them on Thanksgiving. That was pretty much it. It's not like it is now, where you get a FaceTime every 3 hours from your kid.
Gen
So,
Z is very connected to their parents, very
right,
connected.
we've all survived, and I think we'll survive social media, especially given the fact that the content is degrading to such a degree that the interest level is waning, I think, a little bit, at least for the older generation. So, Kate Ross, we want to thank you for being here. The Just a Couple of Guys team has really enjoyed your presence. We wish you continued success. Your success benefits all of us, right? So, I mean, if you're good at your job, our kids are safe, and that's all we can ask. So, for our team and our crack producer, Paul Stukel, the publishing company, Fox Valley Magazine, my partner, Ray Rogina, mentor, meme, co-host. And if it weren't for Ray Rogina, I wouldn't have met people like Kate Ross. So I'm very fortunate to have been in a situation where I can meet these kids and watch them become what they've become. So, and for myself, of course, I'm looking forward to the rest of the summer, and I'm dreading the back to school nightmare that comes every August, which is upon us. We want to thank our sponsors, of course. We want to suggest to the listeners and viewers that they should patronize the sponsors as much as possible. They're good people. They're good places. We've seen them all, and we've been to them all, and have nothing but the highest recommendations. So thank you very much, everybody. And for the guys, Just a Couple of Guys, until next time.